Good morning, fellow patriots. Welcome to the 347th consecutive Friday meeting of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots. We are glad you elected to share this morning with us as we pay a much-deserved tribute to Americans deployed warfighters. The other day, I was chatting with a friend and a fellow church member about all the unrest going on around the world today. My friend shared with me a story about his youth, an event that occurred when he was preteen, somewhere around 11 years old. He said that his mom escorted him to a mid-morning tent revival being conducted in his small Midwestern township. The event had been advertised as a free breakfast and followed by a sermon by a well-known evangelist circulating in the area of the state. My friend's mom would always be the one of the first people to arrive at the tent revivals, and if possible, she would sit them as close as possible to the pastor. So, following the opening remarks, the pastor asked an old farmer, decked out in his bib overalls, to say grace for the morning breakfast. The old farmer slowly got up and began to pray. He said, "Lord, I hate buttermilk." Then he paused. Well, the pastor opened one eye, glanced up the old farmer as he was wondering where this prayer was going. Then the farmer elevated his voice saying, "Father, I hate lard." Now it was apparent that the pastor was growing a bit concerned with the old farmer's prayer. But then, without missing a beat, the old farmer said, "And Lord, you know I don't much care for raw white flour." Well, the pastor once again opened an eye to glance around the room and saw that he wasn't the only one starting to feel a bit uncomfortable. Then the farmer said, "But Lord, when you mix them all together and bake them, I sure do love warm, fresh buttermilk biscuits." The farmer went on to say, "So Lord, when things come up that we don't like, when life gets hard, when we don't understand what we're saying, when we don't understand what you are saying to us, help us to just relax. Wait till you're done mixing. It will probably even be better than the biscuits. Amen." My friend said, thank you. My friend said, "You know, Jim, I learned something from that old farmer's prayer. I learned that within that prayer, there's a great wisdom for all of us when it comes to complicated situations, and in some cases, unfathomable situations like we're experiencing in the world today." My friend said, "Jim, the farmer's message is simple. The message is strong. Stay strong, my friends, because the good Lord is mixing up several things we don't necessarily care for right now, but something even better is going to come when He's done with it." Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and join me in the pledge to our great flag and our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I would like to introduce, we have a few new people, a few guests here with us today.
Yeah.
Yes. You sure you're over there? You're all set?
We are ready to go, sir.
How about, where's Jim? Is it Redewick? Right, there we go. Yeah, I even got it right. Thank you. Welcome, Jim.
Oh.
We're glad to have you here. Okay, and you were in Army in 70-72.
Yes, sir.
And what was your MOS?
Military police.
Wow. Okay, and how did you hear about the Red Friday, sir, breakfast?
I drive a golf cart at the Southeast Clinic on Fel Vista and Pecos, Monday and Wednesday. Just chasing down wheelchairs and greeting people. And one of the guys came up and gave me the Red Friday
Card?
card and said, you ought to come have some breakfast. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah, I was hungry, so I came.
And where are you from, Jim?
Originally from Detroit.
Okay, are you here permanently, or?
I got out of the Army in 72. I moved out here in 73. So I've been out here coming up on 53 years.
Long time.
Yep.
Well, we're glad to have you here with us this morning, and we hope you come back and visit with us again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And what was your MLS?
11 Charlie, Mortar.
Oh, Mortar.
I was on the first lottery draft, number 39, so I kind of knew I was going to be drafted. Yeah.
Okay. And how did you hear about our Red Friday?
I talked to the Vietnam veteran here, and he told me to come. Yeah.
We get a gold star, right?
Yeah.
Well, Jim, we're glad. Are you just visiting, or are you
No,
here?
I reside in the resort
Okay.
on Ellsworth. Yeah.
So you're here year-round then with us?
No, 3 months.
Oh, just 3 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we hope in that 3 months you come and visit us again.
I'm
okay?
planning on, yes.
All right. Very
Yeah.
good. Thank you very much for coming
Yeah,
this morning.
thank you.
And Joe Glatzel, is that how you say it? Yeah. Boy, I'm getting good at this.
Yeah. Hi.
And Joe, you're just a patriot with us here this morning. And how did you hear about our Friday Red Shirt?
Well, my father-in-law, Doug Whitaker, here.
Doug! Woo! And that's how you heard about us?
Yes.
And you're just, I'm assuming, just visiting?
Just
or?
visiting, yeah.
Okay. Well, we hope that you come back and visit with us again. You know, we enjoy having you being here.
My dad was in the Army.
Yes.
And I was what you'd call an Army brat, you know. We traveled around the States and was at about probably 5 different Army posts. And so I was on the other side of the deal.
That's a good side, too. There's
Yeah,
nothing
it
wrong
is.
with that.
It is. It is.
Well, congratulations. And
Thank you.
thank you for coming to visit with us, and we hope you come back again soon. Can I get a hoorah for our guests, please? Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to invite Colonel Ted Confederate to come up. Ted's going to introduce today's speaker for us.
Where'd it go? Can you all hear me? Okay. This morning I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our speaker, a gentleman whom many of you may know but may have little knowledge of his military and civilian background. Colonel Adam Torem, U.S. Air Force retired, has been an ardent supporter of our Red Friday program during the past couple of years, and during the winter months when he takes residency here in Mesa. You'll often see him at our assemblies. He first visited our Red Friday group, in 2023, and has been a seasonal regular since 2024. Adam is a part-time resident at Las Palmas here in Mesa. He and his wife Erin purchased their snowbird home in 2023 and have been doing their best to spend more time in the sun each passing year. Adam is still working for the state of Washington as an industrial insurance appeals judge. And in that capacity, he presides over administrative hearings regarding workers' compensation appeals, industrial safety, and health matters. Regarding his military career, Adam joined the United States Air Force while in law school at the University of California at Davis. He was commissioned as a second lieutenant through the ROTC program in 1992, promoted to first lieutenant the following year, and entered the active duty service as a member of the Judge Advocate General's Corps. His 6 years of active duty service included tours at Fairchild Air Force Base, Spokane, Washington, Anderson Air Base, Guam, and back again to Washington State at McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma. He worked as a prosecutor in military courtrooms and specialized in environmental law issues. Adam served another 18 years in the Air Force Reserve, including tours of duty in Iraq, Alaska, Korea, Japan, Afghanistan, Colorado, and Ohio. In those tours as an individual mobilization augmentee, he worked in physical law, international law, and the law of armed combat. including advising commanders on targeting and rules of engagement. Unlike traditional reservists in reserve units, IMAs integrate with active duty components and have flexible duty schedules, performing annual training and individual duty for training to be immediately deployable during crisis. Adam served in a leadership role as the senior IMA for the 11th, 7th, and 5th Numbered Air Forces, as well as the Air Reserve Personnel Center, and finally Air Force Materiel Command, where he provided oversight of 70 reserve lawyers and paralegals. Colonel Torem is the recipient of numerous decorations, awards, and citations, to include the Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal with 4 oak leaf clusters, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Air Force Commendation Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters, Joint Service Achievement Medal, Air Force Achievement Medal, Afghanistan Campaign Medal with 1 device, Iraq Campaign Medal with 1 device, Humanitarian Service Medal, and the Military Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal with 1 device. In 2021, Colonel Torem earned a Master of Laws, that's an LLM, in Environmental Law with cum laude honors from Northwestern School of Law, Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon. He retired from the armed services on his 50th birthday in December of 2017, having attained the rank of colonel. As many of you are aware, the Air Force JAG Corps is the uniform legal arm within the U.S. Air Force, providing legal services for the Air Force and Space Force, and operates as a specialized corps of attorneys and legal professionals supporting military operations, justice, and policy. Today, Colonel Torem will speak about the history of the Judge Advocate General's Corps and its significance for the branches of service. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel Torem, United States Air Force retired.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to be a lawyer up here in front of you and not actually on a billboard in Phoenix. In this presentation, I'm going to walk you through a history of lawyers in the United States military, highlight some of the important events involving judge advocates over the years, and maybe talk a little bit about what a military lawyer does, what I did in my service. There we go. So I like to remind people that judge advocates or JAGs, we've been annoying commanders for 250 years, strictly in the name of the law. But I assure you that when I was wearing a uniform instead of just this tie, my job was not all about creating red tape. That was a different kind of Red Friday, and having to say, no, you can't do that, sir. I found, though, over the years that JAGs matter because discipline is essential to our military effectiveness, and justice sustains discipline and legitimacy. The law has been a key part of the United States military since its founding, and as you can see on the screen, the Army JAG Corps was where it started in 1775. They had their 250th birthday last year ahead of the country. From the beginning, George Washington knew that it was a good idea to have a lawyer by your side. In July of 1757, then Colonel George Washington, he was in the Virginia militia, wrote, "Discipline is the soul of an army. It makes small numbers formidable, procures success to the weak, and esteem to all." With the outbreak of the American Revolution years later, in 1775, General Washington found himself in charge of a motley crew of militiamen, and they were all from different colonies. They didn't always get along. He recognized that for both military effectiveness and to gain that legitimacy in the eyes of the European powers he wanted to have as our allies, the American Army had to be trained and disciplined to fight like a professional force as they had in Europe. A small and essential aspect of his project to tie up that United States Army was an effective system of military justice. So later that year, on July 29th of 75, Washington made a request to Congress, and they appointed William Tudor to serve as the judge advocate of the Army. Lieutenant Colonel Tudor had clerked and studied law under our future president after that, John Adams, in Massachusetts. And Lieutenant Colonel Tudor was charged with enforcing the Articles of Law. They were the rules of the game back then. They were the existing rules we inherited from the British. Going forward, General Washington didn't establish a permanent legal corps like we have today, but he relied on line officers that weren't trained in the law to serve as judge advocates as needed. His commanders had broad discretion, and they all relied on their legal advisors keeping up good order and discipline. During that Revolutionary War, the Judge Advocate General prosecuted himself several major trials, including the court-martial of Benedict Arnold in 1779. That wasn't for being a traitor, that was before. This was for alleged misconduct. Benedict Arnold was mainly acquitted, but he never gave up a grudge against General Washington. He turned traitor. Pictured here is the result of the 1779 espionage case against his collaborator. This was Major John Andre, a British spy who was hanged after a trial. From the conclusion of that American Revolution up until the Civil War, not a lot was happening in the legal world. The American regular army remained small, so did the legal practice. Congress even abolished the position of judge advocate. So whenever there was a court-martial that had to be convened, again, line officers, no formal legal training, were expected to serve on both sides. So if you needed a defense attorney, could be someone that was firing a cannon earlier. Things started to change. The next guy I've got on the screen is General Winfield Scott. He was actually a member of the Virginia Bar and served as a judge advocate, but later, during the Mexican-American War in 1847, he took the initiative to establish a system of military tribunals, something that's come around again and again on many wars. These were military bodies that were dealing with what was going on in Mexico outside of United States jurisdiction, and he tried soldiers as well as Mexicans of various crimes they were accused of. The Civil War came and we had more change. In 1863, President Lincoln issued what's called General Order Number 100, and because of its author, better known as the Lieber Code. This Lieber Code incorporated common law crimes like you would have in the penal code in your state into the military crimes. They also adopted the law of armed conflict. Judge advocates were now tasked with enforcing these regulations, and eventually the Lieber Code influenced things that we know today, the body of international law created at The Hague in the Netherlands in conventions of 1899 and 1907. Going back to the Civil War, remember, it was fought here on our own soil. Because of the domestic involvement of our own citizens, that created important legal precedents regarding the use of martial law in the United States. During the Civil War, President Lincoln suspended the right of habeas corpus, and he allowed the prosecution of civilians by military courts. Brigadier General Joseph Holt was the Judge Advocate General, and he personally prosecuted the Lincoln assassination co-conspirators at military commissions run by the Army. And if you're ever in Washington, D.C., where this picture of the hanging occurred of those conspirators at Fort McNair, you can actually go tour the trial courtrooms where Lincoln's assassins and Lincoln's co-conspirators of them, that's where the trial was, and it's actually a very powerful, worthwhile afternoon. Fast forwarding to this last century, in 1917, we went into World War I. The Army had a total of 108,000 troops before we got into the fight. 32 were lawyers. By 1918, you had 2.4 million soldiers activated and fighting in Europe, and the JAG department grew too. I don't know how many lawyers there were, but it was more than 32. And for the first time, enlisted personnel were actively part of the Corps. They became paralegals instead of just some other specialty being detailed to be the court reporter or to be a legal clerk. Pearl Harbor came, the military, as you know, got even bigger, and by 1945, the Army's strength was over 8 million soldiers. Parallel growth was occurring in the Navy, had its own JAG department by then, and it's amazing to me, during the course of World War II, the total of the armed forces conducted, how many courts-martial? 1.7 million courts-martial. A lot of them were probably done as like a captain's mast, very informal, quick field justice, but that's a lot of misconduct to take care of. Then we had the aftermath of World War II. We were involved, American lawyers, American legal personnel, with the prosecution of war crimes. And 1945 to 1948, there were criminal trials held in Germany, Italy, and the Philippines. Army lawyers, like Lieutenant Colonel William Denson, who's on the screen here, helped prosecute and defend hundreds of former enemy officials, military personnel, and civilians who were charged with violations of the laws of war. In Germany, I think we've all heard of the Nuremberg trials. They were the most famous, but there were many, many more trials. They were held to prosecute those who ran other concentration camps and committed other crimes for the Nazis. Similar things happened in Japan. Colonel Denison was a West Point graduate. He later attended Harvard Law School, and he returned to serve as the head prosecutor for the proceedings at the former Nazi prison at Dachau. He and his team tried 1,672 different individuals in 489 separate cases. Often there were blocks of defendants tried at the same time. There's a biography of him that's a worthwhile read, and I can tell you about that later today. I've met the author, and it's an amazing tour from this Alabama lawyer to trying cases at Dachau. Besides expanding the ranks and the scopes of the military's legal profession, the major outcome of the Second World War for lawyers was the renewed push for military justice reform. As you can imagine, those millions of courts-martial, veterans complained to members of Congress about defects in their articles of war. They felt there was undue command influence, so your boss could tell people how the trial was going to come out, wildly varying sentences for similar offenses, and favoritism toward officers. So with the Army and the Navy and the newly independent Air Force unified under a new Department of Defense, there was a need for a comprehensive uniform code of military justice. Congress adopted one, and this is the manual for court-martial that judge advocates receive, and they're supposed to know what's in between those covers. That was from May 5th of 1950, and if you've been in the law enforcement field, you know that pretrial investigations are a big deal. They were formalized by this Code of Military Justice. They actually created, before we had it in American law for civilians, a right to counsel, qualified counsel at a court-martial, and that created a 3-member Court of Military Appeals. It's staffed by civilians. It's not staffed by military, so there's still civilian oversight at the end of the day over the military legal system. Military law and courts-martial started to enter the public consciousness. In 1954, Humphrey Bogart and Fred McMurray brought military justice to life on the silver screen with the Caine Mutiny. And by the Vietnam era, Army lawyers were expected to work primarily in military justice in the courtrooms, but they also worked in claims, civil and administrative law, and legal assistance. Many of you were on base, you probably had your wills written by a judge advocate. JAGs got involved in advising commanders downrange too in Vietnam, making sure that troops learned the laws of war and the ever-changing and frankly much hated rules of engagement. Unfortunately, our training in the law of war proved inadequate. In March of 1968, you remember the infamous My Lai massacre happened. It was covered up for a while, but when reports of that incident came to General Westmoreland's attention a year later, it resulted in charges of murder against 13 soldiers, including platoon leader First Lieutenant William Calley. Only Lieutenant Calley was convicted as a result of that trial, and it was probably the most famous court-martial in American history. In my own Air Force career, I worked as a prosecutor, and I also gave many briefings to soldiers on the law of war. I can't tell if you can see that, but that's Iraq for dummies. And when I deployed to Iraq in 2005, this is how I studied to get over there. But I actually was deployed to the Green Zone in Baghdad, and my duties were mostly focused at that time on physical law, the money. I reviewed contracts, approved acquisitions or denied some, all to rebuild that country several years into the war. But I also provided legal assistance to hundreds of deployed warfighters. I helped to try to take care of their legal problems that were cropping up stateside. When I went, it was the fall of 2005, and it was shortly after Hurricane Katrina had hit the Southeast. Guess who was deployed? The Louisiana Guard. And they had a lot of times in front of my desk trying to figure out, while they were out trying to stay alive in the field in Iraq, I was trying to help them and their spouses back home with claims back in the bayou. A lot of other soldiers, Marines, and airmen, their minds aren't always on their duties if their wife is serving them divorce papers or child custody issues, and that's where the lawyers came in to say, I got your back, you come back, I'll take care of this paperwork while you're gone. So it's like being a long-distance lawyer when you're deployed and trying to help folks out so they can think about what they're doing and not get themselves killed. Pretty rewarding duty at the end of the day. So here's me with some of the Saddam Hussein structures that were down there. It was a really interesting place to practice law. One of the other things that made law come to the forefront was this movie. David Mamet wrote a play called A Few Good Men. They brought it from Broadway to the silver screen, and this helped bring military lawyers back into the limelight just as I was getting out of law school in 1992. Everybody remembers that you can't handle the truth, and Tom Cruise probably couldn't. I wouldn't want to be in the courtroom against Jack Nicholson. The focus and attention on military lawyers continues today, and for some reason, despite everyone seeming to love to hate lawyers, there's always a viewership for courtroom dramas. The JAG TV series ran for over 10 years, from 1995 to 2005. I don't know any of my colleagues ever invited to drive a submarine or fly a plane. But today, attention continues to turn to those investigative dramas like NCIS, and they have their lawyers as well. I want to close today by sharing with you some of the best career advice I ever got. In my very first assignment as eager young JAG, I was freshly commissioned, just out of law school, and I was charged in the Military Justice Department as the Chief of Military Justice, big title for a little guy. And I had my first meetings with squadron commanders and first sergeants who wanted me to make sure that the discipline they were handing out to their troops was going to be right. And one of my paralegals, his name was Tech Sergeant Dan Nelson, set me up for success, and he told me, a good JAG remembers the lawyer's role is to give advice, and it's up to the commander to decide whether to follow it. So be persuasive, but you can't ever tell that commander what to do. And it was a rewarding career. That's why I stayed in after the active duty time and volunteered to do these tours to Iraq and Afghanistan. Meant a lot, still does, and I appreciate your attention today.
Got me back on? Thank you. Stay right here, Tom. Stay right there. Tom, or Adam, we would like, let me get you this way, to present to you a certificate for the Order of the R.E.D. We hereby recognize Colonel Adam E. Torem, U.S. Air Force retired, for his honorable military service, veteran support incentives, and the support of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now, also, I think it's in here. Where'd it go? Ah, thank you. See, that's why you're an attorney, and I'm just saying. Okay. We'd like to present to you also this coveted lapel pin for our Red Friday services, and we hope that you wear it like the rest of us wear it in pride. I'll get that.
Slam it into me, isn't it?
No, you're an attorney. I got to be very careful. I can't do the slamming today. Let me just get that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you so much, Adam. Thank you very, very much. Can I get a hoorah for Colonel Adam? Thank you, thank you. Okay, now I have some special things I have to attend to here. We'll catch up. Would Tom and Debbie Wynn please come forward? Yeah, that's you, Tom. Would you guys please come up here? Richard, would you like to come up, please? Tom and Debbie, on behalf of the Red Friday, of all these groups of people, we would like to present to you our Red Friday lapel pins, and we hope that you'll wear them with honor and every time that you attend our meetings or in public when you're out and about. All right? And we really appreciate all your dedication and everything that you've done for the Red Friday program. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, see how he did that. He gets to do his, I get to do yours.
I put my shirt on this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, like Jim just did. Okay, there's one of them. There's a double. It's a double.
I'm gonna have to get my lapel shirt out.
Oh, I don't know if I can get.
There we go.
Thank you.
Hold on, we gotta hold on here for the camera.
There we go.
Thank you, Jim.
And thank you very
you so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Jim.
Tom, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we have one other special recognition here this morning before we get to our ending parts here. Congratulations is in order for Nancy Fessbender. I know you say, oh my gosh, how many more awards can this lady get? But we want to congratulate you on being accepted into the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Apache Junction chapter. Nancy, congratulations from all of us to you. Can I get a hoorah for Nancy? Ah, thank you so much. Okay, a couple of quick announcements this morning. I have an upgrade on our Red Friday custom logo shirts. We're taking orders for short sleeve shirts now in white, blue, and black, as well as long sleeve shirts. Barry's prepared to receive new orders this morning following the meeting, so get with him to complete your order forms. Also, we have guest speakers scheduled thus far for each Friday in the month of March. We only ask that you please do your best to attend and support them. Would you believe that a couple of our speakers are actually flying in here from out of state just to speak to us on Friday morning? So we encourage you to bring a friend or a family member and introduce them to what our Red Friday program is really all about. By the way, are you folks familiar with the Dutton Family Entertainers? They perform in Branson as well as here in Mesa. Well, for our Friday, February 13th meeting, the Duttons will be right here at our Red Friday meeting to entertain you all with their music. I think that's an assembly that no one wants to miss, for sure. To all our guests, we thank you for joining us today. We sincerely hope you'll return to share in our camaraderie and support our mission. Please know that you're always welcome at our Red Friday assemblies. And as a final reminder, let us not overlook the importance of our Red Friday mission: to keep our deplored warfighters in our thoughts and prayers, and continue to demonstrate our support for those fine men and women. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.